I think we just need to help our kids understand like what debt is and the risk that it can have on your life and the choices that you make as you become an adult and how that's going to play a role in the quality of life that you live. And I think us as parents, like I'm a perfect example. Like I can easily teach my kid like, hey, Noah, Avery, like this, don't do this because this is what happened to your dad. Now, at the end of the day, they can choose what they want to do, but at least I can tell them like, this is how it looked when I lived with that. And this is how it looks without that. Which one do you want to do?
Hey, welcome back. You're listening to the Healthy Parenting Handbook podcast. Just the thing we all said we needed when we became parents. And quite honestly, again, when we became parents of teens. Remember that? Where's the handbook for this? I'm your host, Katie Kimball from Kids Cook Real Food, and I've brought together experts in the fields of health, parenting, nutrition, and more to help you parents who really want to raise healthy, independent adults get the information you need. Parenting is truly the toughest and most rewarding job in the world. Thanks for joining me to consult this Healthy Parenting Handbook, your guide to raising kids intentionally. My guest and I today talk all about finances. Brad Nelson of DebtFree Dad is a great interview guest. He's got a ton of energy, and I just want to share a couple little nuggets from our interview. First, he starts out with, "We're going to do better" is not actually a plan. And I love that he is not afraid to say hard words like, you know what? We as a society have gotten to the point where we think, can I afford the payment rather than can I afford to pay for it all? You might be able to guess that Brad is not a fan of payment plans if at all possible. He says people say getting out of debt is so hard. You know what, friends? Being broke the rest of your life is harder. So who is DebtFree Dad? Brad Nelson is the founder of DebtFree Dad. A devoted single father, Brad helps normal, everyday people take control of their finances so they can live happier, less stressful lives through the DebtFree Dad podcast and his online course, Roots of Personal Finance. Beyond finances, Brad values family, outdoor adventures, and creating lasting memories. Brad is a very valued camp leader in Life Skills Now Season 4. So if you happen to be listening to this before June 2025, go right now to kidscookrealfood.com/lifeskills so that you can sign your kids and teens up. Brad teaches a workshop called The Cost of Convenience for teens and tweens, and it is so good, really hits home, and it's quick and succinct. Let's jump right into the interview with Brad Nelson. Brad, thank you so much for being here. I am pumped to talk to parents about teaching their kids finances.
Yeah, Katie, thanks so much. Yes, I love this too. I think this is one of the coolest parts about what we've done over the years is helping adults, but then how it trickles down to the family. And I think it's gonna be a great conversation today.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of like prevention over recovery.
Yeah.
Right? When it comes to health, yes. When it comes to finances, yes. Like, let's just prevent the problems by starting out right. So, right. Brad, what's your background though? Like, how did you get into money stuff? Why did you decide to teach other people?
Yeah, crazy enough, I kind of accidentally got into this. I didn't do it on purpose or with any intention, which I would love to say I planned to do this my whole life, but I didn't. I actually struggled with a lot of the same types of money problems, living paycheck to paycheck and debt, and like many people do today. I spent most of my 20s living that way and doing a lot of the same types of mistakes, getting in high interest credit cards and taking out, car loans that I couldn't afford and student loans and getting into homes that I couldn't afford and wasn't saving. And as I got older into my later 20s, I really started to feel like the stress of that, constantly feeling like, how are we going to cover next month's bills? And how are we going to handle the next crisis that comes? And it seemed like the older I was getting, sure, I was making more money. I was pretty successful with my career at the time, making normal money, nothing crazy. But, it just seemed like the more money I would make, the more I would spend. And nothing ever seemed to improve, even though I would tell myself, like, when I get that next raise, we're going to do better. Well, that never happened, right? So I finally just was like, enough is enough. I need to learn how to take control of my finances. And I really kind of kicked it into gear when my first marriage ended in divorce. And a big reason for that marriage ending was because of a lot of money problems. One of the number one reasons for divorce in the United States is money fights and money arguments. And so I was very familiar with that and realized how much it impacted that relationship. But I also had at the time my 2-year-old son, Noah, and I looked at my life and was realizing like I'm losing my home to foreclosure right now because we can't afford it because neither one of us could afford it after we got divorced. I got all these credit cards. I've got this car payment I can't afford. I can barely pay for daycare for this kid. And he's going to look to me, to his dad and say, how do I handle money? And I'm like, a terrible example for this. So he was really one of my number one motivators. My second motivator was I wanted to get out of debt because I didn't want to work for somebody the rest of my life. I really wanted to kind of do my own thing. I just really wasn't sure what that was. I just knew based on my financial situation, there was no way I was ever going to be able to open my own business. I was just too much in debt. So I was constantly stuck in that salary from that job to pay all these bills. I could never take a risk and take half a pay cut or whatever because I had to pay all these bills I had accumulated. So I got serious and I just kind of went out what I call was a personal finance crusade. I just started learning and I let my ego go. I let my limiting beliefs go. And I really kind of opened up my mind to say, like, how can I do things different? And so I started reading books, listening to podcasts, going to seminars, going to class. I mean, anything and everything I get my hands on, I was doing it. I was waking up at 3 a.m. before my job. I'm reading books. Like, I'm really serious about this. And it took me about 4 or 5 years. And a lot of people say, how did you get out of debt? I really failed my way out. It was trial and error. Like, it wasn't like a linear path. Like I figured out the process and I just went and it was perfect. No, it was a lot of behaviors and habits and choices and learning what was keeping me stuck and all those things about myself. And that's what took so long to kind of overcome. I also realized, like, doing this on your own is like really hard because we're really terrible accountability partners to ourselves, right? So I would tell myself, be good with that credit card, Brad, pay it off. And 2 months later, I'm swiping it again. And it's like, it took a lot of that to finally get out of debt. But I did it after about 4 or 5 years, paid off about $45,000 in debt. And now I've been debt free for 11 plus years outside of my mortgage. The crazy part of how this all started is that people just started asking me for help. I started sharing my story and saying, like, man, I feel better. Like, I have no more stress. I'm sleeping at night. My credit cards are paid off. Like, life is good now. Like, when things happen, I have money to pay for it. Like, I'm a normal guy. And people started, like, kind of coming out of the woodwork and saying, hey, our marriage is struggling because of this stuff. Or, we're struggling with credit cards, or we're stressed about money. Like, what did you do? And so I just started helping people for free. And eventually I got this crazy idea, like, maybe I could do this for a living. And I've been doing this now for almost 10 years full time, helping people all over the world save and pay off tens of millions of dollars. We have members not only in the United States and Canada, we have people in the UK and Australia and Greece. And I mean, it is insane to me, Katie, that I live in a normal house, drive normal cars, I do normal things. But I just decided to say, hey, if I can do this, like, you can do this too. And it's been so much fun.
I think you said 4 to 5 years feels like a long time. And I think in some ways, though, that's a short amount of time to solve such a big problem that had its tentacles in a lot of areas of your life. And you pointed out 2 really powerful motivators, right? Modeling for our kids and chasing our own dreams. I can only imagine that you were very much motivated to go forward. And then you had the negative motivator of just having gone through that divorce. But I loved what you said way back at the start, most of all. You basically said, like, we're going to do better is not a plan. That's not a plan.
Right. Not
It
a plan
didn't
at
work.
all. No. It's like those New Year's resolutions that we set, right? And by, the third week in January, we've given up. That's what my life was like back then.
Well, and I love that you give accountability to other people and you give them a plan. And so you are in a place of 10 years of experience hearing other people's stories. And so I'm always curious about root cause. Like, what do you see in your work with parents who are in debt as far as the why? How'd they get there?
Yeah, so I think it's a mixture of things. Obviously there are situations where debt happens to us. You look at medical debt. Medical debt is the number one reasons for bankruptcies and foreclosures right now in the United States, and it has been for quite some time. It is a system that is completely broken. So obviously you can't prevent. I mean, you can prevent getting sick, right? In some ways, but there's only so much that you can prevent when it comes to health, right? There's going to be things that are going to happen, or you might look at things like a job loss, or maybe you had a spouse pass away. These things happen in life where you might have to take on debt for certain situations. But then there's the other side, which is where I'm familiar with, which is you are following the herd of the paycheck to paycheck society and consumerism, where you are constantly spending more than you make and you're trying to live a life that you cannot afford. And that is what I see all the time. I understand, and I want to give obviously some credit to where people are today, obviously with inflation and the way expenses are, because yes, that is playing a role in people's budgets and their finances. However, we are still seeing people come through today overspending on going out to eat, subscription services, buying clothes, spending money that they shouldn't be spending, going into debt for things that aren't really improving their financial lives. So I think, here in the United States, like, we are a consumer society and we are a debt society. So I think, us as adults, and this is important, obviously, to start thinking about for your kids, is that we are almost groomed to think that debt is normal. Payments are normal. Credit cards are normal. When you need help, you go into debt for it. Why would you save, right? In fact, when I was, my son was in second grade, he brought home a social studies book, and the little, it was a money unit that he was doing, and it was about a farmer, and it said in there that when the farmer had an emergency, he used his credit card to cover the emergency. And this is second grade. Now, some people might completely over their head never even think about it. But I thought about it, and I'm like, my second grader is now thinking like, well, for emergencies, I use credit cards. And what do the banks tell us when we become teenagers? Well, you should, make sure that you have a credit card. Like when you're 18, right? Get a credit card for emergencies, right? So they're already sending a lot of these messages to us. And I think, so when we become adults, like we just automatically think like the credit score is the most important thing. I got to have a good credit score because I need to get more debt, and I'm going to make payments because that's what we are. I mean, even today, you can do buy now, pay later for McDonald's. You can make payments on going out to eat today. You can literally get payments on anything and everything that you want. And so I think we as a society have just always thought like, can I afford the payment rather than can I afford to pay for it all? And so they have gotten really good at us to think that way.
That is quotable right there. We as a society have gotten to the point where we think, can I afford the payment instead of can I afford it all? Like put it on your wall, people.
Right. Yep.
Because you're right. We're trained, and it's a little bit subversive. It's in the second grade textbook. We're trained to think we should and ought to and may spend money on things that aren't necessary. All right. It's a kindergarten lesson of wants versus needs.
You got it.
But it didn't sink in for a lot of us. I was cracking up, Brad. You had a graphic on your Instagram not too long ago, the payday circle of life. And it was payday. Yeah. I'm a millionaire. Treat yourself. Oh my gosh, I'm so rich. Let's eat. Okay, stop it. Be responsible. Nah, life's for living by the shoes. Oh no, what have I done? Help, 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 help. Payday. And I thought it's an unfortunate cycle, but it's too true, because with that, you included this statistic, which I've heard before, and I fall over in shock every time, that 78% of people live paycheck to paycheck. I've heard it as like 63. I don't care. Both of those are way too high.
Right.
Way too high. What is going on? Like, is it just that it's in our culture, or are there like other things that we're failing at?
I mean, don't get me wrong. I think there is a mixture. We can't put everyone into one bucket. I mean, you look at, home prices have gone up, rents have gone up. Everything has gone up. So yeah, there definitely is a pinch. However, those people that are feeling that pinch were just like one step, maybe 3-4 years ago when this started happening, from a financial crisis they're going to ruin their life. It's like they were just one thing away. Now that they're obviously feeling the pinch, now they're feeling even more like, ooh, our finances are in a tough place. And of course, all they're doing is blaming inflation. And in some cases, there are people out there who are genuinely doing everything that they can to survive right now. They are penny pinching, they are shopping, they are doing everything they can at the grocery store. So there are some people who are genuinely just in a tight spot because of limited income or their circumstances. But at the same time, Katie, there are plenty of people out there, because I work with them every day, that are in situations where they can make changes. Sadly, too many people just aren't willing to make those short-term sacrifices in order to get ahead. Like you mentioned, it took me 4 or 5 years. It doesn't seem like that long from when you look at the grand scheme of your life. Too many people aren't willing to say, I'm willing to really feel some pain for the next X amount of time in order to get here for the rest of my life. People say getting out of debt is so hard. Being broke the rest of your life is even harder. So you really need to look at that and say, if you're a particular person who feels like they're living paycheck to paycheck, we see time and time again people who really can make better progress. They're just looking at their finances with some broken lenses and some worn out tools. And what they need is just some help and just saying, hey, let's look at this a little bit different and let me show you what you guys can do. And it's amazing what these individuals are doing. I mean, I just had a member, her name is Paige. She's a single girl. She started in our program 15 months ago. She's already paid off nearly $16,000 on a single income in just 15 months. It's averaging a little over $1,000 extra and additional debt payoff than she was before she started. And this was an individual who said, Brad, there's no way. I don't think I'm going to be able to make this progress. In fact, when she was 3 months in, she did a coaching call with me. She's like, I'm doing everything I can and I can't make the progress. I was like, Paige, just stay committed to this. I promise you, it will start to go your way. And here she is. And she's like, I cannot believe how far I've come in 15 months. It's crazy. So for those people who are feeling hopeless, for those people who are feeling that tried everything, I can guarantee you there are other things that you can do. And there are people out there, normal everyday people making normal incomes, no matter their situation, that are seeing improvement. unfortunately, again, like I said, with expenses and inflation, it slows us down a little bit, but it doesn't mean it's impossible.
That hope is so exciting to hear. I love Paige's story. And so obviously time and consistency are two of our weapons against debt. What do you recommend or what do you coach people as far as mindset or action? Like what comes first?
Well, I think mindset gets changed over time. I think the first thing that we can do is when it comes to mindset is just being willing to open our mind to new ideas. A lot of people, when it comes to finances, we throw up our walls, those limiting beliefs, everything, that anchor bias, everything that we know about personal finance, and we really stick to that. Like anything outside of that, ooh, that's uncomfortable. I'm not going there. So I think mindset it changes over time. It's not something that you just flip on. Like for me, my mindset when I was first getting out of debt was like, I want to have more money to buy stuff because that was the mindset I had when I got out of debt. To me today, my mindset is I want more time freedom in my life. I want more time with my family. I want more time with my kids. I don't want to work that much. I don't want to be on calls. Like I want to figure out a way to where I can and do the things that I want to do because time is the one thing that we never get back. So I think mindset is something that does take time.
Love that. Time is the one thing we never get back. So when we're thinking about parents, like obviously a lot of adults have some work to do on ourselves to be good models, but let's talk about our parenting. Like how do we talk to our teens and our tweens to help them set a mindset they don't have to change, right? Set it right in the first place that debt is bad.
Yeah, I don't know that I don't know that debt is bad because I think it depends on what debt we're talking about. Like if you want to open a business, let's say you want to open a plumbing business, right? And you're a master plumber, you want to open a business, like you're going to need tools, you're going to need a van, you're going to need an office, you might have to leverage debt in order to get that open. That's not bad debt in that situation as long as you have a good business plan and you're making money, right? But when I think what we want to teach our kids is that we want to avoid debt that is just a liability. Like for instance, like most people that come to me aren't saying, Brad, I'm in debt because I tried to open a business and go out on my own. No, I mean, I have some, but not many. Most people are coming to me because they say, my credit card and my spending is out of control. I bought cars that I couldn't afford. We moved to a town that we can't afford to live in. Like they are seriously, they have overspending issues. They're not paying attention to their finances. They're not tracking. They don't have a budget, right? So this is why most people are struggling. So I would say for most parents, I think we just need to help our kids understand like what debt is and the risk that it can have on your life and the choices that you make as you become an adult and how that's going to play a role in the quality of life that you live. And I think us as parents, like I'm a perfect example. Like I can easily teach my kid like, hey, Noah, Avery, like this, don't do this because this is what happened to your dad. Now, at the end of the day, they can choose what they want to do, but at least I can tell them like, this is how it looked when I lived with that. And this is how it looks without that. Which one do you want to do? And be an example to them. And I think the other thing too, is I think one of the best things as parents, and I mean, this probably goes for a lot of the things that you talk about too, Katie, is just modeling. And I think we sometimes pressure ourselves as parents so much of like, what do I physically need to teach my kids about money? Just have them watch you handle it. Get them involved with the conversation. There are so many teachable moments when it comes to money. Like for instance, when you go to an ATM, perfect moment. Teach your kids like this ain't a magic card with unlimited money, right? Like we need to teach them like I'm putting money into the bank. And now guys, when I go to that machine over there and I get cash out, they're pulling the cash out I already put in. It's not never ending money. Like we have to put the money in there. And by the way, when you use a credit card, that's not never ending either. Like just because you used a credit card doesn't mean it's paid for. Now the bill comes and now we have to pay for it out of the cash that we have. And if we don't have enough cash, they're going to charge us interest. And that's when things get expensive. So these are things that we can do throughout our days that are just simple, quick conversations. And again, for all different ages, that will really help them start to have a better understanding about how money works and how debt works.
Thank you for modeling that for us, right? Those are exact conversations that you can and should have. And I'm patting myself on the back a little bit because I do that ATM conversation. Absolutely. When the kids are in the car, like this is not unending money.
Right.
And we had in our last Life Skills Now summer camp too, one of our teachers taught cash cards, clicks, and taps, how to pay for things and what the difference is between debit cards and credit cards. And what struck me when you were talking about the different kinds of debt is that getting into debt to start a business, getting into debt to buy a house, really, those are sort of one-time things. And then you have a plan to pay it back. Whereas spending on clothing and food and eating out and DoorDash and all that, they're like revolving door.
Right.
debts in a way, and you don't really have a plan to get out of them. It's like your new lifestyle. So I'd almost like, for me, that's like my new mindset of thinking about it is like, are there lifestyle debts or are there life investment
Right. That's
debts?
so good. I love that.
Very, very, very different. So how do you think parents can start to get a little more confidence in our own finances so that we can continue to be that model? Like, I'm sure your kids would look at you now and be like, yeah, I want to have dad's life now. I don't like when he talks about the old life. That's not cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for parents, I think the number one thing we can do is just make our finances a priority. If you look at the statistics, we this was a funny one we shared on our podcast a while back ago, but more people prioritize their the care and the watering of their house plants than they do of actually working on their finances. People admit that, right? If you look at the millennial generation, over 50% of them have no idea what's going on in their bank account. I think money is just it's just a touch. So many people struggle with it. Again, a lot of us living paycheck to paycheck. It's something that we stick our head in the sand and we just ignore. And typically, if you're in a relationship, moms, dads, and normally the conversation is usually not good because it's usually, how are we going to fix that flat tire we can't pay for? Or how are we going to, our kids got to join the sports and that's $100. Like, where are we going to get that money from? And it's always just this playing defense all the time. Right. So I think by making your finances a priority, that's the number one thing that you can do is just say, hey, look, we're really going to pay attention to this. We're going to make this a priority. And then once you do, and then decide like, okay, what don't you like about your life right now? Like, write down the feelings. Like, I'm stressed, I'm worried, I'm constantly, looking at the calendar and wondering when the paycheck's coming. Like, I don't like the conversations that we're having. Like, there's no plan. It's just, right? This is how I really want to feel. Okay. And then you can start figuring out, okay, what things would help to make me feel less stressed. Maybe it's building an emergency fund. Maybe it's paying down your credit card, or maybe it's having a certain amount of money in your checking account so you're not constantly, getting those overdraft fees and things like that. But you as individuals, like, and as families, like, think about like, what would be the things that would make us feel better? And it could even be fun things, because a lot of people make the mistake. Like, if I'm getting out of debt, I can't have any fun. No, you can still go on vacation. You can still go out to eat. You can still give your kids experiences. No one's saying to stop any of those things. It's just for you to really decide, like, what is it that's going to make us feel better, and what is the life that we want to live? And then what actions do we need to start taking in our financial life to get us there? Because that's the thing. A lot of us, we understand it, but we don't understand it. Money is the thing that's going to, and again, it doesn't mean that money is the most important thing. It's just money is going to allow you to be able to live the life that you want to live, and also to focus on the most important things in your life. Like, for instance, money and personal finance is the number one thing that stresses out Americans right now. It is the 50%, over 50%, 47%, sorry, 47% of Americans say that is their number one reason for their mental health decline is money and personal finance stress. So the beautiful thing about this is, like, once you get control of that, like, you can take all that energy and you can put it into your partner. You can put it into your kids. You can put it in your family. You can put it into your future. Like, you get all this energy back to be able to do more positive things in your life. And people who have never experienced that don't quite understand the freedom that comes with that. And being able to just pour all of that, what was negative before, and be able to do other things. Like, we get people like, Brad, I'm getting raises at work. I got promotions at work. My relationships are better. Like, this saved our marriage. Like, it has this amazing ripple effect. And people who have never experienced it don't quite understand the benefits of really making your finances a priority and improving them.
It's a really common phrase that money doesn't buy happiness, but I think the inverse is not true, because money can, or lack of money can, steal your happiness.
You are correct. Yes, absolutely.
Don't you think? And I mean,
Yes.
even if you're in a rough place with finances and it's really hard to model it with your kids, maybe you need to read stories about people getting into a good financial place and what they're doing with that, and like motivate yourself and then share those stories with your kids.
Yeah.
And vice versa. I know my husband and I were talking recently about one of his friends years ago in college financed a trip, put it on his credit card. And he knew that this guy had credit card debt for years after that. And we thought, you know what? We need to tell this story to our kids, because that's a really good example of not just bad debt, but terrible debt.
Yeah.
You go on the trip, you're back, you have nothing to show for it, and you're now paying for that trip, for a really long time. And I think we told that story because 2 of our kids are doing a Spanish club trip to Costa Rica. And as good, tough parents, we're making them pay for half. And they've got their little payment plan, how much they have to pay a week or a month, and they have to make their own money. So it's, I know my 13-year-old, he's raking leaves today to get to his 55 a month. And, So, and we
I
wouldn't
love
let them
that.
take it. Yeah, we wouldn't let them take it all out of the savings, the birthday and Christmas money for their whole life. I'm like, no, that savings is savings. So I think there are so many ways that we can model good money habits. Let's talk about some really practical information. I know my
Yeah.
audience here just wants like, what can I do? So what do you think, like for teens, maybe for younger kids, like what would be some really practical, like this week, do this?
Yeah, so I think for if you're going to work with your kids, I think obviously getting them set up with simple budgeting. If your teens are making money, which is awesome, that's the first step. We got to make money, right? Because without money, we don't have anything, right? So first, get him in to have that work ethic of yes, I want to make money, but also enjoy making money. All right, there's nothing wrong with that. But then once the money's made, it's like okay, now we need to decide what we're going to do with it, and that's just practicing some like simple budgeting things. And obviously for teens, it's pretty simple, which is nice. You need to learn how to what expenses do we have? Like some parents make their teens pay for auto insurance and maybe their gas for their car. Or there might be some things like that. You also want to teach your kids to save. So teenagers who may have earned income can actually open up a kids Roth IRA. You can open up a kids Roth IRA and your kids can already start investing as teenagers. And so I recommend, like, even if you don't go that far, at least get them in the habit of putting the money away and make it a percentage. Start with 15, 20, because that's what ideally you want to start saving when you're an adult. So get them already in that mindset of putting away 10, 15, 20% of that money and putting away in a savings. All right. And then also teach them that it's okay to have fun with some of that money. I mean, money should be enjoyed. So have them be able to put some money aside in their budget and saying, this is my fun money. Going to the movies, hanging out with friends, want to buy a pair of new shoes, like whatever it might be. And so I think those are some of the things that I would focus on just like minimally. I mean, I think just those things are just huge. The other thing I would do is when it comes to that, the kids Roth IRA is really start like talking to them. And if you don't know about this, is talking about things like this powerful, amazing thing called compound interest. And you had mentioned, Katie, about the credit card and saying like, we wanted to tell our kids like, hey, this is what it looks like after that person went into debt and it took them all these years to pay that off. Like, look how much interest they paid. But here's the thing, interest can also be a benefit to you. And it's called compound interest. And so the cool part is that the magic behind compound interest is starting now. It's as early as you possibly can start because the longer that money sits in there, the more it compounds over time. And the reality is, like, we have a graphic that we share inside one of our live meetups that we do. And it's of two individuals. The first individual started saving at from age, I think it's like, I can't remember the exact age. It's like from 18 to 29, like made like 10 or 11 year period. And then they stopped. And then the second individual started when they stopped at 29, 30, and they invested all the way until age 65. Well, most people would think, well, that person, saved for another 35 years versus the other guy who started early and they only saved for 10. Crazy enough, the person who only saved for 10 from age 18 to 29 had over $150,000 more money than the person who started at age 30. So, and again, the magic behind that is the compound interest, because the longer that money sits in there, the principal keeps building. The interest obviously is compounding over and over and over again. And so it's amazing what we could do for our kids if we got them set up on this. I do this for my kids since my daughter was born, since Noah was about 5. I put $75 away from them every single month. $75. That's most people's cell phone bill. And people might say, I don't have $75 a month. You will once you pay off your debt. You will. And I put $75 away every single month. And I'm starting this with them right now. And at age 21, when they get this money, I'm going to have them keep doing it. At least that's my hope, that they keep doing it. Just keep putting 75 in minimum. If you want to do more, awesome, but just do 75. By the time they are 65 years old, they will have almost $3 million in the bank.
That's a cool number.
I mean, how cool. You can change your whole entire family tree with $75 a month or a cell phone. Which one you want? Like $75 a month. So I think that's, as parents, we need to think how cool that is. Not only can we improve our life, but man, we can really start teaching our kids this stuff, and they're going to teach their kids this stuff. And now you're starting to change generations of your family with just some simple things. We're not talking hundreds of thousands of dollars here. We're talking $75 a month can make a huge difference for them, in the long run. So it's teaching your kids and showing your kids some of these simple things. Also, starting to think about, when it comes to big conversation in a lot of families, college, what's your career going to be? Start talking to them about this. College student loan debt is so damaging for so many people out there. I'm not saying college is bad, but there's a lot of people making terrible college choices. They're doing it for the experience. And like you talked about that trip, man, these people are going to college for an experience. They're having that experience for the next 40 years because they're trying to figure out how to pay for it all. Right. So talk to your kids about school, like what they want to do and how can we do it the most affordable way and with the least amount of debt? Because right now, I mean, college loans are stopping people from starting families, buying homes, and doing the things that they want to do in their life. So I think a lot of parents are very uneducated with it. Admittedly, I'm not the most educated either with it. I'm going to be because I've got a ninth grader. And I feel like a lot of kids are getting themselves signed up for a lot of things that they don't quite understand until they graduate. And they're like, holy crap, I didn't realize that this was what I was getting. And how am I going to pay for all of it, including how expensive rent and all that other stuff is. So I think, if we can just start here, I think you're already well on your way to helping your kids out. And then again, modeling that behavior and having them see you do it is so powerful.
So helpful, so practical. I mean, first of all, you started out by saying how to fix your own finances is make it a priority. So as parents, let's make passing on money sense a priority for our kids. We got to teach them. It's pretty simple. You basically said they need to earn some money. They need to be spending some money. And then you teach them that relationship, right? Right? They don't earn more than they spend. $75 a month. Incredibly practical number. And when I heard you quote, people in your community who say, I don't have $75 a month, and yet they're in debt. Like if you could back that up to before they got in debt, hey, do you have $75 a month to spend on your credit card bill interest? That is nothing. You're getting nothing for it. If you think about it that way, oh my goodness. Do I want to put this on my credit card if I don't have money to pay it? Oh, do I have an extra $5 to $10 a month just for this? You know what I mean? Like, you're right that the way we're taught to think about money in general in our society is pretty poor. It's pretty broken. It's making us poor and broken. Yeah. And so it's exciting to hear the progress that you personally made and that you're passing on to people in your community. And now people in my community get to teach their kids. Like I'm excited. This is going to be some great conversations in my own family in the next couple of weeks for sure. What do you think about self-discipline when it comes to finances? How important is that? Yeah, ouch, I know.
It's probably the most important part. I think that's the hardest part. I think even today, like people think, well, it just must be easy being debt-free. No, it's not. I mean, it's easier, but I still have to have self-discipline. When you become debt-free, you have a lot more money to spend, right? And if you're not careful, you can continue to still overspend and do things. I still do to this day. I mean, I'm very transparent. I tell people, it's like, look, just because I'm debt-free and I teach this stuff, it doesn't mean that I don't make mistakes. I do. There's times where I spend money that I shouldn't, especially when I get bored. That's one big thing for me. It's one of my bad habits. When I get bored, especially here in Wisconsin and it's cold and there's nothing to do, I find myself buying stuff I don't need because I'm just keeping myself occupied, right? So I gotta be careful with some of that stuff. And we all have that. So, self-discipline is part of that whole mindset thing too. It's you are going to, when you go on your journey, whether it's debt freedom or just improving your finances, you will learn so much about yourself. And as long as you're committed to, continuing, a lot of people, you're, like I said, you're going to fail and it's going to be because of habits, behaviors, and choices. Having that consistency and that discipline on a regular basis is key to long-term success. You don't reach a certain point in your personal finances and then you're done. You don't have to worry about it anymore. It's a daily commitment. Financial health is a daily commitment to say that I am committing to our goals, to our future, to the life that I want to live. And I'm going to take this money, which is honestly a blessing, and I'm going to use it the best way I possibly can to, improve my life, my family, my kids, and our futures. And you really gotta have to be responsible for that. And the other thing I also want to try to help people understand is think about how much time you spend making money. Think about how much time you're away from your kids, your family. And a lot of people aren't really crazy about the jobs that they work in either. And it's like, think about how much time and effort you're putting away. And if you're not managing that money the right way, aren't you really just disrespecting yourself and your own time? And in a lot of ways, I was too, completely disrespecting my time. All that time I was putting into that work. And here I am just throwing this money away and not paying attention to it, and not being intentional. I mean, I feel it's like one of the one of the worst things that you can do to yourself, because time is just the one thing that you never get back.
That is very powerful. I got to say, just as I was wasting time on Facebook appropriately today or yesterday, I saw some sort of viral reel, and it was this like welder guy, some guy doing like crazy physical labor. But the caption was, I would rather tell my kids, see you later, daddy's got to go to work, than say, sorry, we can't afford that. And I was like, I just thought, I feel exactly the opposite. I think you feel the opposite too. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. I'd rather spend time with my kids and be like, we're not going to have that thing, but you get me.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's funny that you bring that up. I was in a jewelry store a while back ago, and it was a fiance and like a couple. They were engaged, and the fiance wanted like this necklace or something, and the gentleman ended up buying it for her. And he ends up saying once the purchase was done, he's like, I only have to work 26 Saturdays to pay for this for you. And I'm like, dude, I love my partner. I would rather spend 26 Saturdays with them than have that thing on their neck. But that's just me, right? And again,
Right.
you have to find a partner that also resonates with that too. But I'm thinking like, but it just brought so much like, I mean, you literally are trading your time for stuff, and it's stuff that you don't really care about. I don't know if you've ever read the blog by Bonnie Ware, 5 Regrets of the Dying.
Heard of
Great.
her, yeah.
5 Regrets of the Dying. Not one of those regrets was, I wish I had more stuff. In fact, the 5 regrets are all free. They were all free to us our whole entire life. And what happens is like all of this other stuff that's out there, all these distractions that are out there that are the things that we tend to focus on. By the time we get to the end of our life, we're like, we missed it. Like we should have done things different. It's amazing how much we occupy ourselves with just a bunch of stuff that don't matter.
It's true. That guy in the jewelry store, it's kind of like he kind of got it right. He understood that it's a trade of money for time. Like
Yeah.
he defined it right. And then, I mean, I guess he chose his own values, necklace over
Right.
quality time. And that's it's such a conversation with our kids, is those values, financial values, spiritual values, social, human values. They make a huge difference in how we spend our resources, our time, and our money. I know
Yeah.
you said your weakness is boredom shopping. I know my weakness financially is just trying to save as much as I can, and I, spend what I have. But I've never actually done a budget where I'm going to save this much, and I have this much to spend. Like I've never gone into debt, but we just always like save what we have left. and
Yeah.
and so it's interesting to hear you say, like, if you do the math, that $75 a month will get you this big. I think that gives people a freedom to understand more. Like, I do have this amount of dollars to spend on a vacation this year, instead of
Yeah.
wondering, which is kind of stressful. Like, well, we have the money in the bank. I think we can spend it on a vacation. I
Yeah.
hope we can, and
Yeah.
so it's a freedom there.
Right. And I think it's important that you understand those numbers too, because when you consider things like purchases, especially like cars, the average new car payment is now over $700 a month. I just did a statistic on a TikTok I did. I think it's like 17 to 18% of people are now signed up for car payments over $1,000 a month. $1,000 a month for a car. So if you understand these numbers and say, okay, if I were to take that same amount of money, heck, even half that amount of money, and put it into an investment account, earning whatever percentage you want to estimate, and invest it over the next X amount of years, 10, 20, 30 years, is that car really worth that? And it changes your perspective, and I know that there's people out there that are like, well, Brad, you only live once. I'm going to drive the car that I want. And unfortunately, with people with that mindset, I can't help those people too much, because there are people who are just okay being broke, right? They just they don't care, and that's fine. But for those people who are really wanting to get out of debt, like these are the questions, these are kind of the light bulb things that can really get you kind of thinking like, maybe we need to really review how we're spending our money and where that's going.
Yeah, that math is awesome. And I almost want to take that math a little further. $1,000 a month for a car. How many times do you buy it? Like, how many minutes are you, or drive it? Yeah. I mean, how many times do you drive it? How many minutes are you in it? What is that, like dollar per minute or dollar per hour to drive that thing? Is it less expensive to Uber at some point? You know, and Uber's very expensive.
Yeah. And not only that, in the next 4 or 5 years, that thing's going to depreciate about 70%, and it'll be worth what you're paying on it still, which is insane. So again, that's the other thing too, is how much money you're putting into a depreciating asset something that's going down in value, you buy, and this is a great thing to share with your kids. Like, hey, you buy those shoes for $80. Like my kid loves shoes. He's got a pair of shoes that are a couple $100. I'm like, dude, okay. You realize, well, and again, some shoes I get, they're collectors. You could sell them for more. But for most shoes, and especially if you wear them, you ain't gonna be able to sell them for what you bought them for, right? Same thing with the shirts and the expensive clothes, or the Stanley Cups and all the stuff that we have out there, right? And we have to tell our kids, like, you're paying top dollar, and guess what? That's more than likely going to be sold at a garage sale for $1 or sent to Goodwill. Right. So have them understand that, like, do you really think about it? Do you really want these things? And how important is it? Because everything that you buy outside of, like, we talked about our investments, like homes and businesses and things like that, the majority of everything that you buy that's consumer is all going to go down in value. It's going to depreciate, which means it's going to be worth less than what you paid for it. So again, Your hard-earned money should be put to work for you. Your income is your best get out of debt resource. So you want to protect it and you want to use it the best you can.
So good. My brain is full. Honestly, my heart is full because I feel like you're giving people a lot of hope. You're giving people, you do give people hope. You get people out of debt. Tell us how you work with people. What does that look like in your program?
Yeah. So, what I realized, like I said earlier on, is getting out of debt is hard. It's the hardest thing I've ever done, and the big reason for that is because when you're doing it on your own, there's not a lot of people who are doing it. And you have friends and family and coworkers, and being that debt is normal. It's hard to get around other people that kind of share the mindset of I want to improve my finances, right? So it's easy to kind of get sucked back into that herd mentality and what everybody else is doing, and that's what kept me stuck for a long time. So I realized when I got to the end, it's like, man, accountability would have been nice. Having somebody to kind of check in with me, having like even a group of like-minded people who were doing this to kind of lean on when things weren't going so well, like to tell me like, hey, keep at it, keep going. And that's essentially what we created 10 years ago when we opened up Roots of Personal Finance, is our membership program, where people come in and not only do we walk them through this education process and the whole process of getting out of debt, showing them how to get their budget set up, get their emergency funds done, setting up their debt payoff plan, and teaching them about all the debt like we basically give them the education that we should all be getting in high school, right? But then the most important thing, like you've talked about here today, Katie, is self-discipline. We give them that accountability and support, because it's one thing to know what to do, but it's another thing to actually do the work to get the results. And that's where people need the most help, and if you think about it, if you look at the gym as an example, like the gym in December is pretty empty, probably not very busy, but by January, it's full of people. New Year's resolutions, going to lose that weight. And I'm a victim of that too. I've done it as well. And by the third week of January, guess what? It's right back to where it was in December. And it's not because people forgot to how to get to the gym or how to work out or it's just commitment. It's commitment to what they said that they were going to do. And so the American Society of Training and Development actually did a study on this, and they found that people who have regular accountability appointments are 95% more likely to complete a goal than doing it on their own. And that's it. That's all we're doing. We're not doing anything fancy. It's not like, DebtFree Dad and Brad Nelson came up with this fancy new secret way to get out of debt. We're really just giving you the basic things that have been out there for years, but we're just giving you the support and accountability along with it. And that's how we've been able to help so many people. That's the secret. It's education, hard work, support, and accountability. And if you can keep that with that, you'll eventually get out of debt.
Fantastic. Guys, follow the DebtFree Dad on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. If you go to kidscookrealfood.com/DebtFreeDad, you can get a little 15-minute power-packed educational video from Brad. What I always, like, my brain goes so many places, and I'm guessing a lot of listeners are like me too. They're like, great, okay, cool, 27 items on my to-do list, go. So let's distill it down. I always end with this, like, what's the first step that people should do when this podcast ends in like 2 minutes?
Yeah, if you don't do anything else, do this one thing. As soon as it's over, go on your bank account, go on your credit card accounts, go on your digital wallets, PayPal, Cash App, Venmo, print out the last 3 to 6 months, maybe even 12 months if you're an overachiever, of all of your spending and expenses. I will guarantee that you will find money that you didn't even think that you had. And you're going to be realizing, like, we can save more. We can actually begin to pay down debt. We are actually spending way more than I thought on those subscriptions and on Amazon and on going out to eat. Time and time again, I get people that come back to me and say, Brad, I'm sick to my stomach when I look at this, but it is eye-opening to realize, like, I can do better. So this is one thing that you can do. You'll also feel a heck of a lot better because you're going to start to understand where all your money's going, and now you can begin to start your first budget.
So good. And now people will be canceling my Picky Eating membership subscription, which is like, I get those emails. They're like, oh yeah, we did a subscription audit. Like, we just got to end this one. And I'm like, good for you. Like, sorry to see you go, but I'm very proud of you because I think financial stewardship is super important. So do it. Look at credit card statements, bank statements, PayPal, Venmo. That's part of the trouble. We've got so many places our money is moving. Nowadays, it's a little harder to see it. Where'd you go, money? I don't know.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy. And I mean, there's so many different ways that you can pay now too. And, all these automatic payments. And so, I mean, I think, it's a good way to kind of get a good reset and say, where do we go from here? There's also great apps out there like Rocket Money that can help you with some of that stuff. Again, you have to pay for a few of those things, but it might be worth the money to help you kind of get things organized, at least to get started.
Yeah, depending on how much of a mess your finances is. Thank you so much, Brad Nelson, Debt-Free Dad. This was incredibly educational. Let's be good models, parents, and do it right for our kids. Thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Healthy Parenting Handbook podcast. I hope your brain feels fed and your heart feels full and that you feel connected, knowing that there are other parents on this journey with you. We're just trying to raise healthy, independent adults. And the next time you think, man, there is no handbook for this job. Now there is the Healthy Parenting Handbook. Look up the podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. Please leave a review, my friends, as that helps other parents who need this information to find us. And of course, subscribe. That's a huge help. You can also look for our shorts as a reel on Instagram at Katie Kimball Kids Cook, or subscribe to the Healthy Parenting Handbook Shorts channel on YouTube. You'll get those bite-sized portions of healthy parenting advice.